All right. Rise and fall of the DC cinematic universe. Look, I'm going to be honest. There's only been like the past decade, maybe 3 or 2 good DC movies. They've all been Batman. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear no crying from nobody. I don't want to hear no crying from nobody. I don't want to hear it. I don't care to hear it. Boo-hoo. Wop wop. Let's get right into it. Let's go. After this, we'll open up shop.
Hi, comic comrades. Christmas is almost here, so is the final installment of the DCEU as we've known it, with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And as we say hasta la vista to this roller coaster of a universe, we think it's the perfect time to take a big picture look at the rise and fall.
I'm not gonna lie, Jason Momoa, great actor. I didn't like the latest Aquaman movie. I really didn't like it. It was like a fun watch, but like, would I watch it again? Fuck no.
DCEU. Because let's be real here, the DCEU has been polarizing to say the least. Never quite able to find its stride or a path worth staying on. So today we're going to take a look at its inception and make our way through every single one of its films.
My God, Wonder Woman was this movie was so fucking trash. This movie, bro.
Order of their release, all the way up to the final film, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and give our best overview of what we think went wrong along the way. Also, just a quick podcast update, we will be taking our annual holiday break to spend time with our families, so the final podcast of the year will be on
December 26th. I know this video is probably like,
and it will return
last year, 5 months, yeah, as you should.
January 15th.
Always take holiday breaks with family. Fuck the job, fuck the business, fuck a Walmart, fuck a Fry's. Nigga, it's the holidays. Go spend time with your family.
Aquaman fared at the box office, so make note of that. You're not going to want to miss it. Okay, let's get into the rise and fall of the DCEU. The first installment in the DCEU was The Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder. The film was a hit at the box office, being the 9th highest grossing film of 2013, while raking in $670 million worldwide off its
Superman's movies have always been good.
$25 million budget. Today, Man of Steel is regarded as one of the best films in the entire DCEU, and for the most part, liked by the fandom. However, at the time
Man of Steel is pretty good.
Were far more polarized about the direction Snyder took things with Superman than the box office results might suggest. Right out the gate, director Zack Snyder established a darker DC universe overall, from the visual tone down to the characters and storytelling style. And that led to one of the most controversial scenes from the DCEU in general, which is the moment Superman kills General Zod. A good chunk of fans didn't like that the Beacon of Hope was forced to kill in his very first movie. Although it's not completely foreign for Superman to kill.
It's not. It's really not.
Several times in
he has.
Main continuity at that. But more often than not, he finds a way to avoid the loss of life, which is where the controversy stemmed from. Either way, having Superman snap Zod's neck as he sees no other way to stop him from killing the innocent people in front of him displayed a very new Superman and definitely cemented the tone for the DCEU going forward. It also simultaneously is one of the most defining moments for Superman's growth in this universe.
I'm not gonna lie, I feel like there's been I'm pretty sure he would have found a way to prevent that man from killing him and not even kill him. Like, he would have saved the family and not killed Zod. I feel like in the comics they would have done it right. In the movie, though, you know, it's climatic, man. You gotta have something thrilling in the movie. You gotta have something. But again, bring something good to. You gotta bring something that people want to be like, oh my God, did he really just do that? No, everyone was like, why the fuck did he do that?
Controversy and geekdom, this film overall is now widely considered to be one of the best DCEU films. A lot of people would say the best. It also introduced us to Henry Cavill as Superman, who is arguably the best live-action Superman to date. The movie also brought us the brilliant and now iconic Hans Zimmer Flight Superman score. So after the success of Man of Steel and the fantastic job he did with Watchmen years before,
Watchmen was a fucking good movie.
To give Zack Snyder the keys to the kingdom and build out the new DC extended universe
which was a bad idea, because Zack Snyder's cut is a good movie. It's just too fucking long, I'm gonna be honest.
Their main director,
I don't want to sit there for like 5 hours and watch a movie.
And creative. And most felt like things were off to a strong start. Unfortunately, this would lead to the next entry into DC's live-action film universe and what became the beginning of the end for the DCEU. And of course, that is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which debuted 3 years later. And
Rachel
was officially teased at San Diego Comic-Con in 2013. It pretty much broke the internet. To this day, it remains one of the biggest movie announcements in history, as fans lost their mind, us included, over the fact that we were finally going to get both a Batman and Superman together in live action for the first time. It was directed by Zack Snyder and set up as a sequel to Man of Steel, and the anticipation to see the Man of Steel and the Dark Knight together on the big screen for the very first time was insane. Everyone thought this movie would be monumental for the DC Cinematic Universe.
It wasn't.
Set the stage for DC to compete with
It didn't.
surpass the MCU success.
It didn't.
For all intents and purposes, Batman v Superman should have been one of the biggest superhero movies of
all
time. On paper, its arrival should have landed like an Infinity War mega blockbuster, but it did not, and I'll explain
it got
why
nowhere.
in just a minute.
If you've been following Variant for a while, you know we're big Star Wars.
Is this another one of those ads? Yeah, I'm gonna keep it a stack with you, homie. I don't give a shit.
Description below.
I respect the hustle. I'm here for the rise and fall.
When
I'll check into it after the video. All right. I don't give a shit for now, but I will after the video. Okay, I promise.
Dawn of Justice came out in 2016. The reaction was very split, as it is to this day. You have your diehard Snyder fans who will defend it till the end of time, and then you
doing tricks on it.
Everyone else was like, yeah, very much lackluster, huge missed opportunity, just not cohesive or great as a film. The movie was also torn apart by critics having a 29% Rotten Tomatoes score. As for me, I've been very vocal. I think BVS has a lot of cool parts, and Batman and Superman look great. The Batmobile is awesome. The fights are awesome, but the Lex Luthor storyline was not the best, to say.
That shit made no sense.
Don't get me wrong, the idea of an older Batman finding out there's an alien living on Earth that could take over the planet if he wanted, and growing so paranoid that he tries to take him out before he could potentially turn on us is cool, but at the same time, giving us this older Batman, a Batman who's never heard of Superman or any of the other DC
that doesn't make any sense.
One of the biggest mistakes for this movie.
That literally made no sense.
Because we got a Batman.
Batman would instantly find out about these characters and make a weakness for them. Like, he would have their weakness within an hour. Within the hour. Like, literally within the hour. Like, an hour for Superman, an hour for one. He would make all of it and crunch it down within the hour. Like, Batman not knowing that the rest of the fucking people on the planet are super beings is like Spider-Man not knowing that fucking Doc Ock was his fucking teacher. Which he didn't, which he should have, by the way. Like, it was pretty obvious, but hey, whatever.
Where most of his career already happened, so they would just allude to things from the past, like the death of one of the Robins at the hands of the Joker. Then Zack Snyder would...
I'm playing he didn't know. I'm playing he didn't know. He didn't know. I'm fucking around. I'm literally joking around. He didn't know. But you get the idea.
Killed was...
Or, it's the same thing as people not knowing Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Like, bro, he doesn't have a voice changer. Homie, his voice.
Grayson, when many of us thought it was Jason Todd, as that's the Robin Joker killed in the comics. But instead, Snyder made it Grayson for why, I do not know. Anyway, I see what Zack Snyder and DC were trying to do by giving us an older Batman, saying this world is already established with heroes, but I think it still misses the mark. They were basically trying to play catch up with the MCU at this point, as they were already...
There was no point to do that. There was literally no point to make an older Batman that didn't... There was literally no reason to do that at all. That's like J.R. Smith running the opposite way with the ball and LeBron James going like that's literally all of us. Like, what the fuck are you? That was no reason to do that.
Their second Avengers movie a year prior to BVS. The problem is rushing anything rarely ever works, especially in storytelling, because you have to give the audience time to build a connection with the characters. Yes, they're familiar characters, but different interpretations of them. Case in point, Ben Affleck Batman was a Batman that did not mind killing. He was mowing people down left and right.
Not mind at all.
Blowing people up. It was crazy. Don't get me wrong. Keaton Batman did his fair share of killing and is the OG badass Batman. But remember, we were coming off Christian Bale Batman, so at this point, the current generation was all like, Batman doesn't kill. He's got one rule, so it threw everyone for a loop. But going back to rushing things, how are you going to introduce Doomsday as the villain that literally killed Superman in the comic books and then have him kill Superman in the Man of Steel's second appearance in your extended universe? That would literally be the equivalent of introducing Thanos in the second ever MCU film and killing him and Iron Man off in that same film. You just don't do that because it literally makes no sense. Again, the fact that they decided to introduce Doomsday as the big bad for BVS still boggles my mind to this day. And that they decided to kill Superman off in his second ever appearance in the DCEU
that made no
blows
sense.
My ever-loving mind. I love Superman a lot. He's one of my
favorite. That will always be one of the dumbest things Zack Snyder will ever do. Like, that would be the dumbest things he ever did. Look, guy's not bad, but he's also not good either. Because, like I said, the movie made no sense. Then you had the Zack Snyder's Justice League, Zack Snyder's cut. That shit was a two-pack of ass too. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sitting there for
characters of all
4
time.
hours.
And even I wasn't emotionally
No.
invested enough to care that much
No.
when they killed him off in BVS. I was
Exactly.
just like, why are you doing this so early? We didn't have nearly enough time with Henry Cavill's Superman for that death to mean something yet, and that's coming from someone who loves Henry Cavill Superman. The movie ended up making $873.6 million off its $225 million budget, but it really should have been a $1 billion plus film. We're talking about the first ever live-action Batman Superman movie released at the
It should have been the first billion movie ever, but it wasn't, because then again, once again, the movie was trash. The plot made no fucking sense.
Of comic book movies.
It was stupid.
Again, for me, the biggest problem with this film is the fact that it was rushed, and they introduced a character like Doomsday way too early.
For
they
no
should have
reason
held off
at
several
all.
films
No
like
reason.
they did with Thanos, then killed Superman, at which point we would have all been heartbroken, as we would have been invested several films in at that point. All for him
Exactly.
to inevitably come back to life and face someone like Darkseid. Another amazing villain they did introduce, just also way too soon. And
Way
that's
too soon.
all on top of getting the worst version of Lex Luthor I've ever seen. The introduction of Wonder Woman was great
Yeah.
though. She's a demigod and has been around forever, so that made sense. And again, Ben Affleck Batman looked great and was badass, but the story and choices that were made overall set the DCEU down a horrible path. Case in point, later that year in August of 2016, we got Suicide Squad, directed by David Ayer. It is widely considered to be one of, if not the worst entry into the DC Extended Universe.
It's such a bad movie. I watch it multiple times because it's fucking funny, right? Like, it's funny because you ever watch a movie so bad that it's funny? Yeah, this is that movie. I watch it multiple times because it's funny, because it's so bad, right? But would I ever take this movie serious? Fuck no. Never in my fucking life. And I'm not buying a Suicide Squad game either. That shit is...
And with that said, I personally don't hate this film as much as most, but I could definitely see why it's crapped on so much. I mean, first and foremost, we got an awful take on this universe's Joker as played by Jared Leto. Now, Leto is a fantastic Oscar-winning actor, and his band 30 Seconds to Mars is great. However, just because you're a great actor-musician doesn't mean everything you do is going to be hailed.
A gangster Joker literally made no sense. Dude had tattoos and was out there in the hood slinging dope. Like, it would have made sense if he was in a factory laughing off gas slinging dope. Just in the club, Harley Quinn shaking ass. Like, no, nigga.
Hailed as
No.
golden, and that's the case here. His take on the Joker is widely considered one of the worst interpretations of the character. From the moment we got that Joker teaser image of him with the damaged tattoo on his forehead and shiny metal grill, fans became very worried, and rightfully so, because again, not the best. He also
Not
played
the
Morbius in
approach.
Sony's Morbius film, which is regarded as one of the
They called echolocation bat radar. They called echolocation a type of bat. When I tell you this movie was just straight dog shit, dog, I was fucking tight when I got done watching the movie. I was tight. Like, I was like, bro, no way they just called it bat radar. Like, how lazy are you, bro?
the worst comic book films of all time. So basically what I'm saying is maybe he should stay away from comic book movies. So you mix Leto's Joker in with the horrible interpretation of Killer Croc, who's one
That
of the
shit was
best Batman
fucking
villains,
terrible, by the
and
way.
you end up with an overall lackluster story and one of the most widely hated DCEU films to date. Having said that, it did give us a couple of awesome characters, like Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, who has become one of the best parts of this universe. Viola Davis, Amanda Waller, yet again awesome. Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang, totally awesome. Will Smith as Deadshot, and a banger soundtrack. We also got a dope cameo from Ben Affleck Batman. The crazy thing is, this movie didn't even do bad at the box office. It had a budget of roughly $175 million, and it made $746 million worldwide, so it wasn't even a flop. It actually made a tidy profit for the studio, yet it's still regarded amongst fans as one of the worst offerings from this universe. This film also has...
It's good to watch. Like, if you take the family to it, they're gonna love it, right? Kids are gonna love it. Teens are gonna love it. They're not in the comics. They don't know what the fuck's going on. They just love seeing sexy women and badass dudes on screen. They're just gonna... Fucking neurotransmitters are gonna go off and fucking, you know, it's just like it's gonna get the neurons going crazy, right? You know, you're gonna just go crazy. You're gonna get, you know, your fucking hormones and all that shit's gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. To everybody else that cares about these characters in this franchise, we're just like, There's no way to.
One of the biggest continuity errors in the DCEU when the Flash briefly makes a cameo defeating Captain Boomerang. Because in the Justice League movie, he says he's never done battle. It's just something that's always annoyed me. But next up, we have Wonder Woman, which came out in 2017. Now, I don't have a damn bad thing to say about this movie. This is actually one of my favorite superhero films of all time, and certainly my favorite DCEU film of all time. I absolutely adore this movie. I think
It was a good movie. It was a good movie.
Along the lines of
That
this. I love the way they portrayed Wonder Woman as a character and
84
hero.
though?
I've been saying it ever since this film was released, but my favorite part about this movie is the fact that nothing else matters to Wonder Woman besides doing the right thing. Remember that scene in the trenches where Steve Trevor and the other soldiers were like, no, we can't go into battle, it's too risky. But she's like, what are you talking about? No, we fight for the innocent, no matter the cost. She was a hero through and through. It also had some of the best fight scenes. The battle with Ares at the end was dope. Wonder Woman was just complete and utter badass. Again, I don't have anything bad to say about this movie. Gal Gadot and director Patty Jenkins nailed it, and apparently critics agree, as it's got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' highest rated DCEU film, and that's for a good reason. Story, action, dialogue, cinematography, all good. I just said it, but again, I have not a bad thing to say about this movie. And it killed at the box office. It only had a budget of $149 million, which is not a lot for comic book movies these days, and it ended up making $822 million worldwide. This gave me hope for the DCEU again, but then we got the Justice League movie later that year in November of 2017, where things got really dicey. Now, Justice League was originally directed and halfway shot by Zack Snyder, and as I said earlier, he was essentially helming the DCEU at this point. However, during production, he tragically lost his daughter, which obviously meant he had to leave the film. And Warner Brothers and DC, having so much weighing on this Justice League movie for the future of their DC cinematic universe, were like, we need an A-list director to come in and finish this film. Someone who is really good with superhero team movies. So who did they tap? Marvel Studios director Joss Whedon, who directed the first two Avengers films. Yeah, they had to be thinking, you know what's gonna make this film successful and be more like the MCU? The guy who did the first two Avengers films. That will guarantee this film is gonna be great. With Snyder out of the picture, Joss Whedon came in and essentially redid the entire film, changing the tone, reshooting a lot of the same scenes, trying to give it more of that colorful MCU tone, and so on and so forth. A total departure from when Zack Snyder wrote and had already shot before Whedon came on board. But you know, the executives at Warner Brothers and DC were like, yeah, do that. It's working for Marvel. And though we haven't really been losing money on any of our previous films, the fan reaction has been very mixed with our movies, and we're not making as much as we would like. So yeah, Marvel-fy this Justice League movie, because that's gonna get butts in seats. So that's exactly what they did, and it gave us one of the worst films in this universe. Being frank, this film is pretty bad. Across the board,
It is so... I can't stress how bad that movie is. Both versions, Zack Snyder's cut and that version. They're both bad. I think they're both terrible. I'm gonna keep it a buck. The DC should just stick to making cartoons. Make animations, make cartoons. Just stick to it. They're good at making like animated movies. Those are fucking really good. The live action movies, they're just trying too hard, bro. It's like that one edgy kid you're in class with that tries too hard to be edgy and dark and no one takes him serious. And then he threatens, self-harm, and he's not really going to do it, but he just wants attention anyway. Yeah, that's what these movies are like.
Can't really think of that many redeeming qualities, and critics and fans all alike agree. It's got a 39% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. I remember initially seeing it, wanting to like this film so bad, and even tricking myself into liking it a little bit because it was the first Justice League movie. It was everything I've ever waited for, but at the end of the day, not great. The film cost upwards of $300 million to make without marketing and only made $660 million worldwide. So though it technically didn't lose any money, it didn't really make much either. At the same time, Warner Brothers and DC were banking on this just made like $300 million. Be their biggest film ever. We're talking about the first Justice League. The first time we're seeing Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg together in live action. This should have been a billion-plus movie all day long, but it didn't even come close. The dialogue they gave Batman with him trying to make goofy jokes all the way to the CGI of Superman's lips Just again, no. What makes this movie an even
What was that
bigger
one
tragedy-
Superman movie where they? No, what was that one? It was The Flash, right? When they had all the Superman universes come together, and we saw fucking Nicolas Cage as Superman or some shit like. It was terrible. That movie was fucking. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna keep it a stack. I'm gonna tell you about what I said earlier. In the past, the past like a few years with all the Marvel movies that came out, The Flash, all that stuff. The only good one was the new Batman. That shit was gas. The new Batman was pretty good. I liked it.
Tragedy is seeing the
Everything else
Snyder
is
Cut
just so
several
bad.
years
I
later,
don't
but
even wanna talk
more on that
It's
in a
just
bit.
so
At this point, there were only 5 movies into the DCEU, and they were already struggling. All very hit or miss, as they couldn't get fans to attach to these films like they were attaching to the MCU. Let's look at the facts. Man of Steel, BVS, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, and Justice League. The only 2 films out of those 5 that people, for the most part, would agree were good would be Man of Steel and Wonder Woman.
Exactly.
So 3 out of the first 5 films split the audience right down the middle. And honestly, looking back at it now, several years later, the DCEU suffered from a lack of cohesiveness. They all kind of just felt like one-offs that were forced to live in the same world. It was very apparent early on that although Zack Snyder had a plan on where he wanted to take and build out these characters, Warner Brothers also wanted to try other things, so it just felt all disjointed. However, before Justice League
was
did
all
poorly
bad.
at the box office, we were supposed to get a second Justice League film from Snyder. Snyder explained that Darkseid would have come to Earth, Lex would have found the anti-life equation, and teamed up with the Riddler, who would have been able to decipher it. Lex would then suggest to Darkseid, if you kill Lois Lane, who would have been pregnant at this point in time, you'll be able to control Superman, as he will succumb to the anti-life equation, as the anti-life equation allows you to control all will in the universe. Darkseid would have indeed ended up killing pregnant Lois, at which point he would be able to control Superman with the anti-life equation, giving us the Nightmareverse, which is why we saw that nightmare sequence of the future in BVS, and also saw Flash from the future warn Bruce in the Batcave saying, Lois, she's the key. Because if they were able to save Lois, Superman would not go evil or be controlled by Darkseid. So in
Exactly.
his Justice League 2 that was never made, future Bruce, knowing how Superman would go evil, would sacrifice himself to save Lois, at which point Superman would never turn evil, and he would team up with the Atlanteans and the Amazons to defeat Darkseid and his new gods. So they would have ended up killing off Batman in the end. Now, although that sounds really cool and I would have liked to see that, it's still an Elseworlds type story because you can't permanently kill off a character like Batman so early. Killing him off in the second Justice League film
It's
gives
stupid.
you no longevity for your DC universe. So I don't even think Snyder's version would have been the answer to success to the DC movie.
Like Dragon Ball not having Vegeta and Goku.
Universe. Remember, as brilliant as Snyder is, he also gave us BVS, which wasn't that great. So after Warner and DC gambled everything on Justice League and somehow it performed worse than BVS, Snyder and Warner parted ways. With that said, you can't blame the theatrical cut of Justice League on Snyder, as Joss Whedon and the studio butchered that thing, giving us a Frankenstein monster version of what was originally intended. The DCEU would then go quiet for a year until December 2018 rolled around, when we got Aquaman, directed by James Wan. This is where things get even stranger for DC, because after the tragedy that was the Justice League film, which should have been DC's biggest film and one of Warner Brothers' biggest films in general, they found massive success with Aquaman making $1.1 billion at the global box office off a $160 million budget. Meaning,
Aquaman
clearly,
was
for
good.
the most part, fans liked the film. I thought it
Aquaman
was
was
a ton of
good.
fun. It had its problems,
It
but
was good.
overall, it was entertaining. But no matter how you feel about this film, it still remains the DCEU's most successful movie. Just think about
Which is
that.
crazy.
An Aquaman film outperformed a Batman versus Superman movie and a Justice League movie. I don't know, guys. At this point, DC fans want to believe we've rebounded, especially since in April of 2019, they had another hit with Shazam.
Shazam
one of
was
their
good.
best
I liked
entries.
it.
Now,
I
this
thought it was.
film
I thought it
didn't
was a
make
cool
that
family
much
movie.
worldwide, coming in at
I thought it was a cool
$367
family
million
movie.
off
Like,
a
it was
$100
alright.
million budget, but it also didn't lose any money, and it was very well received by fans overall.
I'm not watching
so
the second
at this point,
one,
the DCEU had 2 back-to-back wins. But even with that, the DCEU was still lacking a
I didn't like
plan,
Black
a
Adam either.
vision
Black Adam
going
wasn't that good.
forward. The universe still felt like it didn't know where it was going. It was just throwing out stuff with no real path of where this was gonna lead in the end. This is
Nowhere
something
at
the first
all.
10 years of Marvel nailed with their end credit scenes by tying every film together and teasing the threat of Thanos inevitably coming. But it was very clear that the DCEU strategy was set on fire a long time ago, as Zack Snyder's original plan, which would have concluded in Justice League Part 2 that we just went over, ended up being very short-lived as the Justice League bombed and threw it all into chaos. Then DC and Warner just started throwing stuff out there, hoping it stuck, which would be its downfall. To be fair, it did seem like they had somewhat of a plan before panicking after BVS and Justice League's polarizing performances. Because on top of Justice League Part 2, we were supposed to get a solo Cyborg film, a Green Lantern horror movie, a Nightwing film, a Ben Affleck Batman film with Deathstroke as the villain, a Harley Quinn versus Joker movie, a New Gods film, and of course, Man of Steel 2 amongst others. Which was another big problem the DCEU had. They would announce all these films that we were supposed to get or that were currently in development and then never follow through for some strange reason. How are you going to say we're doing a solo?
They're like, hey, we're going to make all these movies and you guys are going to love them. And then like years later, like, what happened to these movies? And they're like, what movies? We didn't say we were making these.
Then never follow through. The fact that DC announced so many of these films that we never got just pissed the fandom off and left a bad taste in our mouths, which no doubt contributed to the growing disdain fans felt towards the DCEU. I haven't even gotten to the bit where the DCEU would literally shoot an entire film, be like, oh my god, this isn't good, we can't release it. It will really only make things worse. Anyway, after 2019 Shazam and DC still not having a solid plan, in February of 2020, they gave us Birds of Prey, starring Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, introducing the Birds of Prey team with Black Canary and Huntress.
Yeah, I know the movie was gonna be terrible.
Even the amazing Margot Robbie and her portrayal of Harley Quinn couldn't save this film. It was just an absolute mess. Everything from the story to the portrayal of the characters were not good. Don't even get me started on Cassandra Cain, who is supposed to be one of the most badass assassins and deadly members of the Bat family. And then you also had Black Mask as the villain, one of the coolest Batman villains played by the amazing Ewan McGregor, but somehow that got messed up too. For the sake of not going down...
I said it before in the last reaction video and I'll say it again. Good actors, good characters, dog shit writers. It's a weird formula, you know? Writers and directors like to go down this weird path and when they're making movies. It's like you want to have good actors and good characters, but you just want to dog shit on the... You just want to just take a huge, massive hippopotamus alpha shit on the writing. And I don't get that. I really don't. I don't get that at all. So maybe I'm just an idiot, but I think that's maybe a formula we should not be using anymore.
The rabbit hole. Let's just say audiences...
Maybe we should try using the quadratic formula and see how that works.
It cost around $84 million to make without marketing and only made $205 million worldwide, being one of the biggest flops for the DCEU to this day. Again, even Margot Robbie...
It's like I said earlier. I'm a woman. I have abilities or powers, and that's literally the writing. They don't do anything to make the females seem charming, seem lovable. Like I said, female characters usually are pretty cool. Like, they're pretty badass. You know what I'm saying? Like, we love them all, right? Everyone loves a good woman who can kick some ass. Like, we all love them. Comics, anime characters, we love them. Then you put them into live action, and it's like... I don't want to sound like that guy, but this sounds like it's woke trash. Like... It's just trash, bro. Like, terrible writing. It's just bad.
This film,
all
which
bad.
is annoying as I'm a big fan of Birds of Prey in the comics, and this could have been great. However, this was not the only film we got in the year of 2020. We would also get Wonder Woman 1984, which was highly anticipated, coming off an extremely successful first Wonder Woman film. But guess what? This was not that. Somehow they went from the first Wonder Woman film, which is my favorite DCEU movie and widely viewed as one of the best films in this universe, to Wonder Woman 1984, one of the worst films they've put out. It's just mind-boggling to me that you can go from a masterpiece to this. The film also didn't really have Wonder Woman that much. It was mostly about Diana and Steve Trevor. Also, both villains on paper should have been great.
I'm not going to reiterate. I'm not going to reiterate myself for like a fifth time.
But they didn't land. Maxwell Lord, played by the amazing Pedro Pascal, and Cheetah, played by Kristen Wiig. The story and character development just wasn't there, and it pains me to say that, as this film should have been an amazing movie, as the first one was so good.
It should have been, right?
Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. It's just, again, the script. And I'm not going to judge the box office numbers on this, as this movie was released via streaming during the height of lockdown, but let's be honest, even though it was released in theaters, you can't really judge it given the time period. Then in 2021, we got the Snyder Cut of the Justice...
I'm not hearing that. That movie would have been straight dookie trash no matter what time period it came out. I'm not trying to hear all that. Definitely not.
Justice League. This
try,
is
though.
something that fans were petitioning for ever since the disaster that was the 2017 Whedon theatrical Justice League. The fandom pushed so much that Warner Brothers brought back Zack Snyder and gave him an additional $70 million to finish the Justice League, how he would have done it without the studio having any input. Hence the Snyder Cut, which was released on March 18th of 2021 exclusively on HBO Max, now Max. And I'm thrilled to say this movie is leaps and bounds better than the theatrical version we got. It's also 4 hours long. It's a Lord of the Rings type
Like I said, I'm not a good movie. I'm just not watching. I'm not sitting through 4 hours, bro.
epic. It's easily one of the best films the DCU has done. I might even say the best, though it's not considered canon to the DC Extended Universe. Warner Brothers still considers the theatrical version as canon. I don't know why, but hey, suits are gonna suit. Now with that said, and this being one of my personal favorites, I still think if this was the version we got in the first place, it still wouldn't have helped the DC Extended Universe out all that much. Sure, it was a way better film, but the path Snyder put all of his DC characters on had no longevity. Dude was looking to kill off Batman in the second Justice League movie. How do you kill off Batman so early when you're
That makes
building
no
a
sense.
universe that needs to last years? I've always said it, but Snyder's plan for the DC universe always worked better as an Elseworld story. And now all the Snyder diehards are like, you're crazy, you're stupid, go away, I don't like your face. All I'm saying is the way Zack Snyder saw all the characters, wrote them, and wanted to write them always worked better for an alternate version storyline. He liked to stray away a lot from the characters' core values and wanted to do stuff that just wouldn't make sense if you were trying to build out a long-lasting, healthy, shared DC universe. Again, he had a lot of cool ideas. The Snyder Cut was great, but it doesn't work if you're trying to compete with someone like Marvel Studios. So giving us the Snyder Cut was probably the best and worst thing Warner Brothers could have done because people overwhelmingly liked it, but
That just kind of made me realize, like, a lot of things are going to shit. Streaming isn't authentic anymore. YouTubers are lame. Everybody's out here pranking people for views. Everybody's out here trying to gain clout by being an asshole to everybody. Movies suck now. Video games are fucking paywall trash cans. Everything sucks. The only thing that's good about life now is trying to make enough money to be financially free on your own and then just go do stuff in real life, like clubbing, eating, experiencing new hobbies, stuff like that, you know? Like the internet is in a bad spot. It sucks.
now it reminds
But on the bright side, the world has a lot to offer. So it's like, hey, go out there and experience it.
reminded the fandom what could have been. We could have seen Superman turn evil, Batman sacrifice himself to save Lois, and all the like. We apparently also would have got the flashback of when the Joker killed Robin, and so on and so forth. I mean, we saw the Snyder Cut ended with Batman in the Nightmare Future teaming up with the Joker, Deathstroke, and more to take down Superman. I want to see that. That said, I don't think if Snyder was allowed to continue, it would have saved the DCEU. But it certainly would have been better than what we got, and we probably would have got a few extra DCEU films out of it. Anyway, after this, we would get James Gunn's The Suicide Squad in 2021, which was fantastic. It's one of my favorite entries into the
Actually, I've never seen this movie, so I can't speak on it.
Him the gig to become the new co-mastermind of the DCU. This was another movie that was digitally released on HBO Max because movie theaters were not fully reopened yet due to the event that shall not be named. But it was another solid entry into this universe. While The Suicide Squad is a sequel to Suicide Squad, it kind of acknowledged that but also ignored the first film for the most part, and fans dug it. We got Margot Robbie's best performance as Harley Quinn, Idris Elba as Bloodsport, who was great, and John Cena as Peacemaker, which was incredible. And we can't forget King Shark, who was voiced by the amazing Sylvester Stallone. The cast of characters were really good. The movie was just good all the way around, but yet again, it didn't really do anything to build out this universe. It's kind of like, why are all these films connected if we're not leading to something? Anyway, after this, we would get a Peacemaker spin-off series on HBO Max with John Cena reprising his role as Peacemaker. This, for me, is the best thing the DCU has done, and it's a TV show. And I know I'm not alone. This show was a massive hit. The intro
I never watched it.
went viral. It's also the only TV show that connects to this universe. John Cena was born for this role. He nailed it. It's funny, the action's great, the writing, all of it, I just love it. The DCU gave us this awesome series, and I would say it did more for expanding the DC universe than any film, with a numerous amount of mentions of other DC characters, obscure and known alike. Hell, in the season finale, we got the entire Justice League with Ezra Miller Flash and Jason Momoa Aquaman actually making cameos. But at this point, too many people have been jumping ship from the DCEU for several films now, as it was a constant up and down battle and nothing was going anywhere. Now, it was also around this time that the CEO of Warner Brothers, David Zaslav, decided to scrap the solo Batgirl movie that just wrapped production. Word on the street was it was not great, so rather than release it in further
Hey, I'm glad hey, I ain't no complaints.
DC brand
No
with
complaints.
another flop, they just ate the money and took it as a tax write-off. I don't know if you remember, but Michael Keaton was supposed to reprise his role as Batman in this Batgirl movie, and apparently reset things as the new Batman, since Ben Affleck Batman was out at this point in time due to all the drama with the Justice League and Zack Snyder. But the thing is, J.K. Simmons was reprising his role as Jim Gordon, who was the same commissioner for Ben Affleck Batman, so I guess the multiverse would have explained this somehow. I don't know. It's just irritating that between the Batgirl debacle and The Flash being one of the biggest box office flops ever, DC totally wasted bringing Michael Keaton back as Batman. It's just a wasted opportunity. Don't get me wrong, he was great in The Flash, but his return should have been way more triumphant and long-lasting. At this
100%.
point, the DCEU was in such trouble they were willing to cancel a film that had already been shot when they didn't think it was gonna perform well. That says so much. After
Says
this,
a
DC
lot.
would give us the Batman in March of 2022, which was decidedly not part of the official DCEU, like 2019's Joker, but it's Batman and the Joker during the height of the DCEU, so an honorable nod to both. While we're not going to see these characters battling alongside Gal Gadot anytime soon, these movies had a lot of love from fans, with the Batman garnering an 87% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and both raking in around $1 billion each. Shifting back to the
They were
official
such good movies.
canon, we got Black Adam in 2022. The only DCU film
And it was ass. It was ass.
we would get that year. And
it
this
was
film had
ass.
a lot resting on its success. The Rock promised this to be like the new age of the DC film universe. The hierarchy of power was about to change, as he so often quoted. But DC saw that even with a massive marketing push by the biggest star on the planet, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, it just wasn't tracking well. So with projections not looking so great, around a week before the
The movie
release
was
of the
ass.
film, The Rock decided to spoil on The Tonight Show that Henry Cavill's Superman would be returning in this film, alluding that in a Black Adam Part 2 or somewhere down the line, we would get a Black Adam versus Superman movie. All of this was a last-ditch effort to get butts in seats. But guess what? It didn't get that many butts in seats.
It was
film
terrible.
Cost around $200
It was fucking
million
terrible.
and only brought in
Directors need to stop casting superstars for the movies. Just stop. It's not fucking good anymore. It was good at first. Stop. It's fucking terrible. And this is like irrelevant. Fast and Furious movies are trash. I'm sorry, they're trash. I had to get that out. I had to get out my. I've been sitting on my chest for a minute. Fast and Furious movies are fucking garbage. I'm sorry. Like the first maybe first 6 or 5. The first 4 or 5 are good, right? After that, it's like dookie water.
$393 million worldwide.
They just started
The
doing
film
shit that didn't
wasn't
even make
bad,
sense.
But it also wasn't great, at least in my personal
Like
opinion.
there was a scene where Vin Diesel and Jason Momoa were racing down a freeway at like 240 miles per hour in like supercars, and Vin Diesel's son jumps from one car to the next, no, that's not happening. I'm sorry. The second he would have jumped off the car, they would have been already like a mile down the road, and his ass would have been splattered and fucking on the pavement. Like, no, I'm sorry, no.
Opinions. But no matter how you feel about the film, it wasn't enough to get people to care and come see the film, even with the end scene of Henry Cavill Superman arriving to face Black Adam. Bringing Cavill back and pitting him up against The Rock's Black Adam was a last-ditch effort to save the DC Extended Universe,
And it didn't
but
work.
it did not work. And after this effort failed, Warner Brothers made a dramatic shift and announced that James Gunn and Peter Safran would be taking over the creative reins of DC Comics, film, animation, and video games. And James Gunn and Peter Safran saw fit to effectively end the DC Extended Universe, going so far to have a meeting with Henry Cavill telling him he will not be Superman going forward. And that's right after Cavill literally just reprised his role as the character at the end of Black Adam and took to his Instagram to tell the world he would be Superman once again, giving us the character in a way we've always wanted to see him. Man, do I feel horrible for Cavill. Literally just months after making that announcement and appearing in Black Adam, it was
I got no
taken
words.
away from him, which is absolutely horrible.
I got no words.
I love Cavill and thought he was a good Superman. He just
was.
needed good writing, which apparently we were gonna get. In any case, this is the point where the DCEU effectively was given an expiration date, as there were only 4 more films in the pipeline that had started production before James Gunn and Peter Safran came aboard. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
Oh man, Blue Beetle wasn't good either. How do you fuck up Blue Beetle, bro? Blue Beetle wasn't a good movie. The main character was too much of a puss, bro.
James Gunn then went on to make a video telling all of us what he has in store for the DCEU, which is now simply being called the DC Universe instead of the DC Extended Universe, aka the DCU.
Yeah, I'm still
At
streaming.
At this point, the DCEU films started bombing at the box office because effectively they did.
The Beetle was such a bad movie, bro. Like, oh my gosh, bro. The Beetle was so bad. Blue Beetle was so bad, bro. Like, I really wanted Blue Beetle to be a good movie, but the main protagonist was just too much of a baby, bro. Like, it was too much family-oriented and comedy that it was supposed to be action. And like, it just wasn't good. You advertised a man in a war suit ready to kick ass, and that's barely what we got. The movie was terrible, bro.
Matter
movie
anymore.
Sucked.
It
I'm
was
sorry,
not
the movie
going
sucked.
anywhere. With that said, the next one up was Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
And this movie wasn't good either.
Very good, which was a shock, as the first one was actually pretty solid.
The first one was really good,
even if it wasn't going anywhere. Even though it had a cameo of Wonder Woman and
my
Shazam
gosh,
JSA,
man,
which was just introduced to us in Black Adam.
Shazam: Fury of the Gods was so bad. Like, the DC Extended Universe is terrible. I'm sorry. They should just stick to making like animations and video games. And even they even do bad in the video games. We haven't had a good Batman video game in almost a decade, it feels like. The last Batman Arkham Knight actually was gas. And then we got another Arkham game announcement, but it's only on VR. So it's like, well, I'm not a DC fan anymore. I hate to say it.
Confusion, as again,
I hate to say
at this point, the DC Extended Universe was essentially over, although they were alluding that some things from this universe would fold over into the new DCU. We're just not sure how that continuity will line up. In any case, the film was not good. Then we had The Flash, which I enjoyed mainly because of Michael Keaton Batman, but it became one of the biggest superhero flops of all time until it was seemingly beaten out by the Marvels. Then
which is hilarious, by the way.
Blue Beetle, which was great in my opinion. It's my second favorite DCEU film, but alas, everyone checked out at this point because the DC Extended Universe, again, was effectively over, and we're now waiting for the start of the DCU with Superman Legacy.
There's somebody at my door.
2025. Hopefully it sparks the beginning of something great for the DC live action
Hopefully,
film.
man, hopefully.
And that leads us to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which probably won't perform well at the box office either, whether it's good or not, because again, it holds no consequence going forward, and fans have little interest left. Jason Momoa has also heavily implied that he will still be in James Gunn's DCU, but rumor has it, as a brand new character, this time around, potentially Lobo, which is a way better fit for him and would
The first good decision they actually made. It's crazy.
be absolutely fantastic. Quite honestly, if done right, it could rival Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. Okay, maybe. In the end, Zack Snyder's vision for the DCEU was dismantled and undone by a few things. But the biggest killer, in our opinion, was that they tried to do too much too fast and didn't give enough time to establish each character and lock the audience in for the bigger moments. So when something didn't land well, it had a much bigger effect overall. Then you lump on the heartbreaking loss of Zack Snyder's daughter, which led to him stepping away from Justice League while it was in production, and the resulting disaster
This is understandable.
that turned into, and we were left with a cascading effect of negative reaction from fans and increasingly lower box office results. And when a studio starts losing money, they tend to make awful creative decisions out of panic and desperation. It's never a good recipe, and somewhat ironically seems to be the tailspin Marvel and the MCU finds itself in right now. But that's a story for another day. Ultimately, the rise and fall of the DCEU is a cautionary tale for franchise builders, and one that we seriously hope James Gunn, Peter Safran, and the new heads of Warner Brothers learn from. The DC Extended Universe film franchise had a few good films, characters, and portrayals, but overall they just could never find their footing and make it work cohesively.
It just wasn't good.
And now we wait for the start of James Gunn's DCU with Creature Commandos in 2024 and Superman Legacy in 2025. Let me tell you, a lot is riding on Superman Legacy because fans are already discouraged by the state of the superhero genre. So there might not be any coming back for the DC live action film universe for a very long time if Superman Legacy does not stick the landing. Having said that, we have faith that Gunn is going to deliver. He is a very capable and proven writer-director, giving us some of the best superhero movies and shows we've gotten in a long time, including Guardians of the Galaxy, The Suicide Squad, and Peacemaker. Not to mention the cast announcements he's made so far look very promising, so we're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. But what do you guys think about the rise and fall of the DC Extended Universe, and what do you think most led to its demise? Let us know down in the comments. Otherwise, we'll see you next time when we talk about the Superman Godzilla rematch.
But I think it led to its demise. Terrible writing. That's literally what it was. Just terrible writing for characters. Good characters, good actors, the worst writing known to mankind and the worst writing in history. Like, it's not even close how bad it was. It's not even close. It's not even close.